welcome to the show today. Today I have Hassan Kadbi on the show, and he's the CEO of Hapimag. And I'm very excited to talk to you about your journey and some of the things that you can share with us along the way, because you had a quite an interesting journey behind you, especially with the company, and some really interesting things have happened since 13, 14, 15 years or something like that, what you shared with me last time. So thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
So
My,
maybe let's dive right into your story. I'm really curious to hear some bits and pieces there. Can you share some of the maybe one or maybe several moments that you really shaped that you feel really shaped you as a human being, that you feel really shaped you as a leader?
yeah, I think two points really. I'll share with you two. One of it is maybe I would say rather an emotional experience I had as a child, and one is maybe something that I had later in life when I started my university studies. Actually, I was born and grew up during the war in Lebanon, and it was an ugly civil war, so it was not a nice experience. Wars are not nice, but specifically when it's civil, it's even worse than that. I remember, we lived between Beirut and the mountains because our school was in Beirut and so on. And once we were at home, my sister and I, and with our aunt, my parents were away, and really the shelling became very, very strong. Heavy bombing around and so on. And we lived at the last floor of a high building. We were with my aunt, who was about 30 years old, and this bombing and shelling was really very heavy. So she tried to do everything to kind of protect us two children, So she took us to one corner of the house, to the other corner of the house, and so on. And it just didn't stop. So she got really scared, I suppose. And what she did is she put us on the floor, my sister and I, and she lied on top of us. So it was a very determining moment that for us as children, maybe we felt it later, not at that point, to say that in life, there's always someone who is more important than you. There is, you do, of course, for the family, you do sacrifices. And this is basically what she was doing. She ran out of options, so that was the best thing she could do. And I think this had given me as a person a lot of passion and how much I appreciate people in general. Think this was one really determining moment that stays with me until today. And the second one is when I went to university in Lebanon. It was post-war situation, and I started registered at the university in Beirut, and my intention was to study either computer or mechanical engineering. I had no plan to enter into hospitality. But I did not like the political developments after the war and so on. And I had never been abroad. I was 17 years old. I started school at a young age, so I was already at university at the age of 17. And then I thought to myself, I'll just leave. I'll go and study somewhere. And I had never traveled in my life, so I found a hotel, a Swiss hotel school to travel to, and within a matter of 2 weeks, I was already in contact with them, got everything I needed, and so on, and then just packed and left. And I think that was also very interesting because I was 17. I had no experience in travel, and I just went away. And I went to a country where I don't even speak the language. It was Greece, actually, my first stop. I did not speak Greek, and I started my studies and work in Europe, and I've been in traveling and studying and working since then for the last 22 years. So I think those two moments were for me the most determining moments that really did shape my future or where I am today.
The one that really stuck with me is the first one, of course, because that was maybe the most emotional one, I guess. And it's just so powerful how you talked about it in terms of there's always somebody else who's more important than you. And of course, it's clear with family, right? But sometimes in business, we forget that, or maybe we want to forget it. And it's not, we can look at it in a perspective of team or customer or the greater good or whatever. But very often, I find this a very, very like an interesting mindset, because it changes everything from the ground up. Because if you always believe that you are the most important person, and nobody else is, so to say, um, you make very different decisions than when you believe the most important person is the customer, your team, or not just person, but there's maybe something more important, which is the greater good. You make completely different decisions. That's something really like fascinating about this story that I feel. And I guess we're going to go a little bit more into that in today's conversation as well. And it naturally leads me into the next piece, which is about lessons learned. I mean, you had some incredible experiences along the way, you know, personal, career experiences, and all kinds of things. What would you say is one of the biggest lessons that you learned along your journey, and what's the context around that?
Yeah, I mean, throughout my work, my studies, my travel, and so on, I did actually learn a lot. I made many mistakes and learned from them. I learned from a lot of people, many colleagues I worked with, and so on. But I think the best lesson for me was I actually work with lot of drive and lot of passion, and I always really want to do the best possible, deliver great results, and so on. So this, of course, has also a drawback that you have then a strong rhetoric, you have an opinion, you really believe you know the solution, and so on. And I think the best lesson for me is that I really don't know the answers to many things. And because before, I came into a topic and said, look, guys, this is what we need to do. I thought about it. We really need to go this direction, and so on. And I was always, pushing, pushing, pushing. And I think this is for me the best learning experience really I had, is that really the more experience I get through working with people, through working on very important things, is I find out that really I truly know very, very little when I think alone of things. And I think this is for me really the best lesson. And over the years, it helped me because I did adjust my way of work. I do involve people now at a very early stage. I have an idea, I have an end thought, but I have more a target than really let's say a way of what will happen to solve this target, and then leave everything open and get information from many people, get many people involved. And the strength of a person will never beat the strength of a team. So I think this is for me really the best lesson ever in any task or any job or any project I have done so far.
This is really powerful because it feels like always knowing the answer is incredibly exhausting. Because especially thinking you always know the answer is so exhausting, because you're always in the center, or you put yourself in the center, and you're always the one driving everything and chasing and pursuing, and you're literally the one doing everything then. But once you realize that, well, maybe you know the answer to some things, but to most things out there you don't. And of course, in a leadership role, that expands, because if you're an expert in a field, basically, well, it's the given that you know the answer to many things, and you don't tap much into other areas because you're an expert in a field, for example. But especially in leadership, I believe it's really more about most of the time you don't know the answer to most things, and knowing that allows for a lot of freedom, or being able to let go of a lot of things, and being less stressed. It almost feels like that. And it's that's a powerful one.
Very true. Very true.
So I want to talk about a topic that many people not many people I usually meet, but a lot of people out there are a bit afraid to talk about, which is failure. You can put it in whatever context you want, but at the end of the day, I believe every failure is a way of learning things. So what would you say, what was one of your biggest, most epic failures along the way, where you learned a lot from it?
Yeah, an epic, I don't know if I to be honest, epic failure, I don't know, because as I said to you before, I really feel that I do make many mistakes, and I fail regularly in many things. I just don't, I haven't had, because an epic failure is probably a failure that you can't really recover from, or maybe because I see failure different, because I just think, you make mistakes along the way. Important is then when you make the mistake, what happens next? You know, okay, I made a mistake, and now do I just walk away? Do I give up, or what do I do? And I am of the opinion that you just have to gather yourself together, regardless of how big the mistake is. So you take it in proportion to this, and then figure out how you want to handle it. So this is the first thing. And the second thing is that you try to evaluate um, why did this mistake happen, so that now my new set of actions or plan should not lead to the same thing. And should they lead to another mistake, how can I really make sure that there is no risk, that this risk is really minimized? And the last thing is that you never really give up. And this is the thing. I persistence for me is something that it's a given must in life and in business. I think you cannot let yourself down because you made a mistake. You cannot let yourself down because you've been harshly criticized. You cannot let yourself down because the result of something you did not come out as you or other people expected it. And you should just not give up and keep going on and on and on. And I think when I talk about business, I can really tell you a tremendous amount of I would say errors and mistakes, because you're bound to do this when you also make decisions. If you avoid making decisions, or if you are shy of making decisions, the number of mistakes you make is automatically less, but your learning is also tenfold less. And I think in business sometimes I've managed hotels where I took profit as the most important thing, and I did a lot for the profit. And then I realized that, listen, I did really a lot for the profit. We produce profit, but some of my customers are not happy. And in the view of the big thing, probably I did do the right thing to drive profit, because we need profit to keep businesses going. But on the other hand, why did I ignore this 10% of unhappy customers that actually I could have made them happy and not have lost so much profit? But because I was fully driven, fully focused into the topic of we need to make profit in property X. This is, I would say, a common mistake in business. Probably many others do, and I did it several times, not only once, but it was in different, let's say, in a different context. Maybe another mistake for again, I take the example of managing hotels and resorts and so on. In general, it's a business that requires emotion, because you handle people's holidays often. I've worked often as well in holiday destinations, so this time is very important for people. It shouldn't go wrong, and so they are also emotional, and often you might react to criticism in a wrong way and not get the right message. So I think this is another thing where you have to really listen properly to your customers, and not listen to them only with compassion, or listen to them only to understand what can be done. It's really listening to them to see what can I really do out of this, what can I make really out of this feedback, what can I really do. So I think the mistakes and the failures are practically almost every day. It's just really, I think it's more important than not what is the failure, is how do you really keep going. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did very much, and especially something that I liked very much is what you said. If you're shy of making decisions, you may make less mistakes, but then you're also learning 10 times slower or less. That's something that really got me, because making decisions is often not easy. And the bigger the decision, the higher the risk, the more difficult emotionally it can be. But at the same time, that awareness of understanding, okay, if I make a decision, so it's more important to make a decision than to make always the right one, because even if I make a wrong decision, that isn't fatal necessarily. So making a fatal decision is probably not a good idea, but most decisions are not fatal in business or life or whatever. So making a decision is better than trying to always make the right decision, so to say. Because if you make a wrong decision, you can learn from it and then make a better decision. And also, there's probably not right or wrong decisions usually. There's just better or less good decisions as well. So that was a really powerful one about decision making. Now I want to learn a bit more about your drive. Like, you're a very passionate person, and you have had an incredible journey at this company as well. So first of all, I want to know, what is it about hospitality? You know, you mentioned it was not planned to go into this direction, but now you're in it, and it seems to keep you there for quite a while. So what is it about the industry or the hospitality that really fascinates you? And also, what is it about the organization that really fascinates you, that keeps you there, that makes you grow, that, you know, that really gets you about moving mountains?
Yeah. Actually, the main answer is one word. It is people, really people. I did not realize this, or I did not know this before, obviously. And when I entered into hospitality, what I liked the most is working with people. It's a business that requires so much communication, and communication in let's talk about the hospitality part. And now with Hapimag, we actually do hospitality and we do sharing. So, and I will come to this, why has this attracted me so much and kept me so long. But if we talk about the hospitality part, it's so much about people, and you know, you save situations by talking to people. You move huge things by working with people, um, by motivating people, by being motivated by people, because we also have a, you know, in hospitality, our product is emotional and is instant. You know, it's not like you don't produce something and put it on a shelf and then sell it. You're there, and that's the moment. And tomorrow it's again a moment, and the day after is again a moment, and your customer is in front of you. Probably not in the booking part, but you know, the booking part is only maybe 20% of the journey, the booking experience and so on. The real experience is when people come to you and really touch your product, the tangibility of it. And there you are with your customer. So in a way, it's very hard because your customer is always there 24 hours. In a way, it's a perfect opportunity to fix anything that goes wrong. So I think this interaction with people, be it a customer or a colleague, it doesn't matter. It's just the people, because, you know, it's unbelievable. You see them, and you see the results of what you do. You know, you do something and you say, "Ah, this was great. This is fantastic. We did it." Or this was not so good. Let's do it better. And the other thing, because, you know, we're all human beings and we make also mistakes with each other, and sometimes we judge each other wrong. Or, you know, when you work in hospitality, sometimes you have hard time. I mean, I remember one of the jobs I did. I was at the beginning of my career, and I got a great opportunity with Hilton at the time, to manage the biggest conference and banqueting facilities Hilton had in Europe at the time. And you know, we had like 5,000-6,000 people every year around Christmas and New Year. And I remember there's a time that I worked 36 hours straight, really 36 hours. It sounds funny, but when I went home, I couldn't take off my socks. They were stuck to my feet. Really, I had to put my feet in water. But, you know, so during this hard time, of course, you have a couple of clashes with colleagues because you say you didn't do this right and so on. And the beauty again about this is you're there and you can again correct this. So I think this is something that made something great. And of course, when you have jobs that require a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, a lot of dedication, you get closer to the people around you. And then this brings me back maybe to the first point, what you said. You said, you know, of course, in business, we sometimes forget about the difference between business and family. But the truth is, your colleagues become almost like your family, because you do spend more time with your colleagues than with your family. I mean, in my case, definitely, because I left home when I was 17. But even in anybody's case, you know, you spend so much time with your colleagues. And, you know, it's, if you take it with a very simple thing, as families sometimes have indifferences, also colleagues do. It's just how do you handle them? So I think this part has really kept me interested in the hospitality industry. And then when I joined Hapimag, and when I progressed in the company, I started to understand more the concept of sharing. And I've always been interested in doing something that I feel always, as a human being, you need to make a difference to life, you know, to others, to the life of others. You know, you come to the world and you work, you retire, and you go on holiday, and then disappear from this world. Life is boring if this is what it's all about. So I think we should be able to do much more than that. And this sharing thing, I truly like it because I believe it's nice. It gets you in contact with others. It gets you to value things more. It gets you to handle the resources in a more sustainable manner, which is, for a better future, for a better future for the next generations and so on. So, and it really pulled me in even more. And I think that's how I ended up being with Hapimag for 13 years. My intention with Hilton, I think I was more or less 5 or 6 years. And my intention when I joined Hapimag to do 5, 6 years and then change again. But I was lucky to get an opportunity every 3 to 4 years of a different type of job. And really, I would say the sharing has just, how do you say, put the top on the pot, and then they got me. And then I'm really, really deep into this business and very interested in it.
It's really powerful what you shared there. Like there's two, maybe there's more, but there's two key things that I heard, which is sharing and sustainability. In terms of the business or what you're actually doing in, what the company's doing. I mean, sharing is at the essence of it. It's very, very, it's ingrained. Even in the business model, it's ingrained, because you all, at the end of the day, everybody shares the company. It's very, very powerful. So sharing is so deeply ingrained. And then on the second level, sustainability, basically, you could call it efficiency or whatever, but it's a very powerful way of, especially in this world today where ownership is becoming less and less of a thing with the younger generations as well, sharing or the sharing economy basically has emerged. And it's such an ingrained piece in there, which is about sustainability. It's about being able to leverage things better. So that's kind of like what I got out of that. It's really, really powerful. I also want to talk about leadership because I mean, you're in charge of a large global organization, and I really want to get to the practical piece and learn a lot from your day-to-day activities and how you do things and the way you look at everything. So the first question I have is about talents, basically. We talked about this last time briefly, but I want to go a bit more into details here. How do you make sure you get the right people on board?
Yeah, this is probably one of the most difficult tasks we have, and I think everybody in business has, and even more if you are in a where you are in destinations where it's more an employee market, and so it varies a little bit by destination, it varies a little bit by what you're looking at, but we have two types of hiring. In our operations around the world, we tend to hire more people than here in Switzerland. In Switzerland, we are a team of almost 200 people. We don't have a very large fluctuation. So here our focus is mainly getting new digital talent, because we, over the last years, we have not, I believe, done enough in the digital space. We are improving now a lot about the customer experience when it comes to digital possibilities, and of course when it comes to the topic of sharing. Sharing can really flourish under proper if you have proper digital assets, and if you do the right things in the digital world. So this is mainly the main part here. And how we go around this, I would say we go around this by of course having the traditional type of HR work of proper profiling and having a profile where we know exactly what we want from this person, and we try to do this part and find out exactly is this person from a technical perspective or from a specialty perspective suitable. Then comes the second part, which is normally something I do quite a bit if I talk to people. I do the interviews, for example, in 2 stages. I do 2 interviews. So, and often the first interview is an interview that I do not interview someone. So the candidates normally come in and I get them to interview me. So I kind of give them the chance to pose as many questions as they like, or I provoke that they ask certain questions, because I think it helps them understand, do I want to work for this company? Can I give my passion to this company? And can I really work with this guy or with this team of managers? Because I often also get key candidates to meet at least 3 people from the management team individually and separately without actually often without letting the management team know. I just go and see who's available and say, can you talk to this candidate for 20 minutes, you know? And I think always stage one, this helps drastically, because then the person themselves says, do I fit in this company? Is this what I want to do? Is it a good company? Is the dynamic good? And then I set up a second interview where I really ask all the questions. And often between interview 1 and interview 2, I send a little task to the person and say, look, we're working on this. It's one of our pain points. It's a very important topic. Please keep it to yourself. Do not share it with others. How would you handle it? Don't give me a solution. How would you handle it? And that over the last 6 months, we have few key positions had helped us a lot. And I think with the digital talent, what appears to be is that once you bring couple in, they kind of help you bring the rest. And for our size as head office or central office, that we need probably in the region of 20 people with this, we've got already half of them. And of course, they also create awareness within the company, because there is also a lot of talent in the company and talent who can learn very fast. So I think this is what we handle here. What we handle in the operations is something a little bit different. I personally myself, and I push the team a lot, we're active on social media. And the way we decided to be active on social media is not by producing too much technical content and so on, by producing very authentic content showing who we are as an employer. So I myself make regular interviews, 1 minute, put them on LinkedIn, Instagram with the colleagues, just to introduce them. So then people again outside say, okay, this is the dynamic of this company, this is the type of the people, those are how international the company is, how do they work with each other and so on. So it gives a sense, and it's so effective because I really get regular messages saying, we like your company, we like the way you guys present yourselves, do you have jobs for us, we're looking for something and so on. So this is mainly what we do on talent, and of course all the additional classical things with job portals and so on. I think this extra little touch what we do is really, I would say, again, people related, and again trying to look into how much a candidate care and how much passion they have, because I think technicality, you need of course a certain level, but the rest you build on, you know. And we as human beings, we actually are very clever, you know. We adjust very quickly, we learn quickly, and I think if we are in an environment where we feel good, where people help each other, where people really work together, where you have good good tools so that people can learn, you move this forward. I think it's really this passion, this hunger to do something better is the crucial way to find at the end the right talent. And of course, sometimes it goes wrong, like everything. But I would say up to, by at least 70% of our recruitment, I would say in the last couple of years, I would say was successful, and 30% didn't work out.
This is really powerful. So I quickly want to sum up this incredibly beautiful process, because I think this is it's so simple, but it's so powerful. Step 1, let them interview you. Step 2, basically a task, so to say, but it's not about, go out and, get a newspaper or something like that. But it's actually about understanding how they work, like understanding of how would they go about something like that, but practically, like in a very, very practical, because this is a real issue. It's not some fictional stuff, that was made up, or it's about a question about the past, how did you handle it, or how would you handle? No, it's about, here's something, tell me how you go about that. This is powerful. And then the third stage, basically, you interview them. This is so powerful. Love that. And then the second piece, I want to go a bit more into that, because this is really interesting about social media. So you said you do a video here and there, and it's so effective that people reach. Last time you mentioned that people reach out to you after years or months of doing a video, and they still reach out to you and say, oh, I just discovered this. I'd love to work with you guys. Do you have job openings anywhere? This is so powerful. So tell me about this. So what do you do? So you said you do quick interviews with colleagues. What does that mean?
So I do under a minute videos with every employee at every opportunity possible. And all I do is I just ask them to say something about themselves and about the company, and each one says something different, and I love it because it actually helps me understand, because they are not briefed, they are really ad hoc, and I don't even say to someone, can we make a video tomorrow, or let's make a video in an hour. I just go to someone and say, do you have 2 minutes for me, and then they come, and then I say, do you mind if we make a quick video? And often most of the people say yes. Sometimes people say we're not comfortable, and then I say to them, let's make it, you see it. If you don't like it, we don't publish it. But in general, 99% do it, and because so far really I've presented, I think, 35 employees so far, from the resorts, from operations, from central services, and so on. And it's good because you see, how do they see the company? Because if when your employees, your colleagues are the ones who say, what we love about the company is that we are a family, we are a community, we want to give our guests the best experience. You already have your marketing pitch. It's really, it tells you a lot, it teaches you a lot. So this is at the moment the main part I'm doing with the videos. Of course, I have intentions to expand this further and do more detailed interviews and so on. But for the time being, I thought, the first good thing is we had a little bit of reputation in the market that we are maybe a company with many elderly people. The truth is we are not actually. We are a company with elderly people and with families, and those are our two target markets. It's because the whole product is about a life cycle. You come into the company, you buy your shares, you start traveling on holiday, you grow older, then your children travel with you and their families, then your children buy their own shares and travel with their own families. You are retired, you have more time, you travel even more. In the low season, you become maybe 80, 85, 90, depending on your health, then maybe you can't travel anymore. Ideally is the time when you maybe give your shares to your grandchildren, not to your children, and so on. And so we have families, and we have families in their life cycle. So we're not old. So, and the part that of us that is old is good, and being old is being wise. So it's not, being old fashioned is not good, but being old is good. It's you have learned a lot, and you can contribute so much to others when the older you get. So, and that was really maybe my second goal when I started this. But I did not expect that I will start getting messages on LinkedIn from people who say, we would like to work for this company, and others who would say, we love those videos, keep doing it, we really like it, and maybe one day we will approach you, for a cooperation or to work together, or so it has a nice reach, and that gives a nice message.
This is really powerful, because just one thing I want to point out, what you said, being old is good, being old fashioned is not good. Huge difference. But that's a whole other topic. But I'm just fascinated by this topic of video. I just want to stay 1 minute more on that, and then go into the next question, because I think what you discovered here is really powerful. Because on the one side, yes, it's an outside communication tool. It talks to the outside world and stuff like that. But it gives you incredible insights into what's happening inside of the company, because at the end of the day, there's a way of saying, okay, let's define our culture. Let's do a management retreat and define our culture. Or actually understanding, well, the culture is not being defined. The culture is the organization, the people in the organization, what makes them up, and the combination of everybody's values and things like that. And this is a way of, and I think it works because you do it ad hoc, because it's not planned out. People can't think about it too much and stuff like that. You give people an easy way out, so that's not a problem. But you just go there ad hoc, and people have to be authentic, because they can't think about stuff. They can't say, oh, what is something that sounds nice, but they just have to say whatever they have to say. This is so powerful because, well, companies spend millions sometimes on this, basically, with consulting firms to come in and talk to everybody, and to create assessments and create reports and Excel sheets and everything. And of course, it's not maybe at that level, but what you've been able to do is get a really good sense of who's in the company, of the culture as well, of what people value, of what they talk about. There's a common pattern, there's a common sense, and the videos are not only able to capture that and then put it into a report so everybody internally knows it, but it directly, without delay, transforms the culture into an outside communication channel. And that is what I find most fascinating about this. And I think that's why it's working so well. That's a topic I want to talk to you about some other time when we meet for 2 hours or so over lunch. Another thing I want to talk about is, so you bring people on board, they're there, or you have, existing teams, and now you have a global organization across many, many disciplines, across many, many levels. How do you make sure people work together well?
No, I think this is again one thing that is very very tough. But I personally believe there are 3 or 4 simple things that make a huge difference, and the rest really is, as I would call it, or many people would call it, nitty gritty. Then you really need to go very technical, and proper training programs and so on. But I believe there are really a couple of things that you can do that makes a huge difference. First, communication really from the top. Meaning, when I took over as CEO, I started immediately 2 things. I did CEO update in the form of a document that is done 3 to 4 times per year, that communicates what have we done and what are we working on for the next few months. And so it comes every 3 months, and I do it in 9 languages because we have employees who speak 9 languages. So that is only 2 pages. It's not more. It's written in a way that whether you have a very sophisticated IT or accounting guy somewhere, or whether you have a person standing behind the bar, or working hard cleaning a room or fixing a garden or whatever, should really understand what is going on in the company. So really, this is the communication of the big messages and the big picture. The second thing that I did is I started a blog with our guests. So I have today on this blog, within 6 months, it went from 200 readers to 29,000. So, but this was intended for our guests and our employees, because our employees would see what are the topics that the customers are talking about, and kind of unites their understanding of the good things and of the problems. Then the other thing is that bringing really or reducing the geographical distance between the central office and the rest of the companies, where I actually went through a kind of a cultural a process of cultural change, that we are there for other colleagues who are taking care of our customers and not the other way around. And basically, I do here for the communication in this building, I do 2 types of communications, actually a bit more, but 2 that are standard. I do a weekly talk for 20 minutes, which is voluntary. People come and are updated on what's going on. And I do every couple months or every quarter a big staff meeting with all the employees are there, which we stream it also for all other employees in all the other countries. So basically what we, with this, all those little examples and few more, is basically the topic of really communication really from the top. So I'm associate the people, let's say my colleagues who are out there, associate everything the company does with me, especially in my case, because once upon a time I was a manager, then I became an area manager, then I became in charge of those operations, and now I'm the CEO. So many of those people know me. And it was for me crucial to make sure that they continue to know me, that they continue to see that as a person, as a manager, I never really changed. It's just my job changed, and now I attend to different tasks. So I think this is a message. The second thing is, how do you ensure people really work together? Is by making them trust each other. I think this is one of the crucial things in business that I've lived it many times in my career, where I see really many business leaders who do not seem to support this. I do not know whether it's because they do not believe in it, or whether people get threatened by it, that that if people are too close, it weakens sometimes the manager. I think it's fantastic. I think if people are good, if people are talking to each other, if people trust each other, unbelievable the amount of return you get out of this, because they also help each other. So when someone fails, when someone falls, the other helps him stand up and they communicate together, they work together. And the last thing is really trying to always make sure that all your operational tasks are coordinated properly between the many different countries, especially in our case, as we are in the hospitality, to make sure that we always deliver a correct level of service that matches the standard, but that is still authentic. So authenticity is tough, but it helps you as well in a way because it reduces the amount of the unnecessary standards, let's say. So I would say this is really the main thing. And of course, using now step by step the digital possibilities. So we're currently working on implementing, for example, a communication app. So everybody of our employees would have it on their smart device and can know about the company, as opposed to today where we have a typical intranet like many other companies and so on. So I would say all those measures, if you lead by example, your team does the same and the other person does the same and the other person who reports to this person does the same. And the truth is you always have 20% who don't like anything and don't agree and will not do it. But who cares? You know, why to sweat the small things? If you are able to change 50%, then 60%, then 70%, then 80% of the company, the rest will live with it and be quiet, or they will go, or they will change. It is as simple as that. And I think we worry sometimes too much about the problems, and it's better to focus on the ones who are willing. And I think this is how you get the dynamic of the company going and people moving fast, working in the same direction.
This is so powerful. I mean, what I heard you really talking about is communication. And more specifically, what I heard you say is communication eye level, because, and maybe for you, it's easier, so to say, because you started at the company in a lower rank or whatever you want to call it. And everybody or many people were in a sort of like hierarchical level on the same level like you, and you've met them along the way and everything. Maybe it makes it easier. But what I really heard is also with the letter that you do in, and not just the letter in English is our business language, that's the no, it's in 9 languages, because those are the main languages people speak, which just that puts you on an eye level with people, because it means you care enough to do something like that. And you know, the 20-minute talks and everything that you guys I think are working on as well, the app and things like that, it's really because you care. It's really because you care about the communication, you care about the people, and it's really because you believe that if the communication happens on eye level, it's just the most effective, and it works, and it demonstrates that you care, and it demonstrates authenticity. That's kind of like what I got from this. This is really, really powerful. So really appreciate you sharing those golden nuggets. And last question I have is a bit more up in the clouds, a bit more ways into the future. So let's zoom out into the future and go to a place where you're 80 years old and you're sitting in your rocking chair and, you know, sitting on your terrace somewhere, looking into the forest or on the ocean or whatever. And you're sitting there and thinking, what is the impact that you would like to see at that point that your actions had throughout your life and throughout your career?
Yeah, this probably links a little bit to what you dream already when you are very young about where do you want to be and how far you want to go. Because I think this is, for me, it's not so much about the career or the business, or it's more really about life, about you know, I truly believe that we as humans don't do enough towards humanity. You know, I think many of us are willing, and some of course do, but many of us don't do enough. You know, I think we are willing and we want to, and we talk about it and we try it, but often it just doesn't yield into something, because we end up doing things that are counterproductive to this. So when if I live until I'm 80 and I'm there and looking at the past and so on, I would really like to see to look through a life I had where I was really able to change something, to make a difference. And to be honest, I really don't know what it is at the moment. I think if I still have 41 years to go until I'm 80, so I still have 41 years maybe to achieve this. But you know, uh, there are so many topics that we could, what we could help with. Pick any topic. Pick the amount of people, refugees who need help. Pick the amount of children who do not have parents and would be happy to have a home and be adopted, but we still like to make our own children. We look at what is the level of hunger or deprived villages and towns in certain parts in the world, whether it's Africa or other places, and where we could really contribute very little of this. And it's the list is endless. So the question is, I believe that so far I really tried and did some things, but really not enough, because I think I hadn't been focused. I just do a little bit here, a little bit there, and so on, parallel to the job. I think as soon as I really find the one that maybe I have the most passion for, because I think I have it, but I'd rather wait a bit to really figure it out, is really to invest enough time and resources and energy from myself into this, so I can look back and see a difference. This morning is really was funny. I like to multitask, not to lose time, and I normally do always do. I do many times two things at the same time. Sometimes I realize it's not effective, and I stop it. But this morning, I was brushing my teeth, and when I was brushing my teeth, I put my clothes on, I put my socks on, and so on. And it took me some time to learn it. But then I realized, I actually saved maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds. Then I thought, if you save 15, 20 seconds a day, multiplied by the days of the year, multiplied by by the number of years, you probably can give a spare of your time about 10 hours a year, And if this 10 hours you invested to help someone through a voluntary work or something, I think you can make a difference, really. What I'm trying to say, maybe this is a funny example, but if you ask me what impact, I still don't know what it is. But when I look back, I would really like to look back and say, you know what? I was really able as a person, as a human being, to contribute to the world, where I was really able to change the lives of some people, or at least convince others to change the life of some people, but just really to add more value than just business, working, paying my taxes, retiring, and having holidays, and of course contributing to the economy like everybody else from the money we spend in order to live. And that is really, I maybe in 10 years we can talk about this. Give me some time, please, on it.
I love your honesty and everything. I really, really, really like that. I really appreciate you sharing all of this, your insights, very authentic stories and everything around it. So what I'm going to do below this video, I'm going to link to some sources like your LinkedIn profile, for example, so people can follow you, connect with you. Also to the company page so people can know what's going on, what's happening, what kind of cool stuff you guys are up to. And then, of course, connect, learn more about opportunities of working together. So Hassan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. It was my pleasure. Much, much appreciated.